wanted to talk a little bit about uranium. The market has been a little lackluster the last few years. Can you talk about some of the problems the uranium market has faced?
Well, Fukushima is the problem with the uranium market because the Japanese nuclear reactors have been on standby ever since then. And that means they have all their stockpiles that they had then, and because of the long-term contracts that they still had to honor, they've been piling up bigger stockpiles of uranium. So this is an overhang that if Japan decides to permanently pull the plug on nuclear energy, such as Germany has done, this is going to be hanging over the market for a long time. And long-term prices, contract prices, were being quoted at $30 a pound. Spot had sunk as low as $18 a pound. Even at 30 bucks, nobody's actually going to sell any because you can't make money with almost any, neither these low-grade mines nor these high-grade ones from the Athabasca Basin. But until that stockpile problem is gone, it is hard to see why uranium would get, in the near term, get back to, say, $50, $70 range, where all of a sudden these deposits are back in action. Now, there's been a whole sort of crowd pumping uranium bull market, premising it on all these Chinese reactors coming online, and they will gradually come online, but that's farther down the road. There will eventually be a shortage of uranium, but it's not going to cause a price rise. Now, they can maybe manipulate the stock price higher. If Japan were to say, yes, we're going to go back, so then they sit on it, it means like lackluster demand, but at least we don't have this supply, liquidation supply, coming into the market. The other big problem is Kazakhstan, and they have come from near nowhere to being the world's biggest uranium producer, and they do it through in situ leaching. They do it in an environmentally unhelpful manner. They're probably going through their own depletion cycle where they've recovered what they can from the easy stuff, probably left a real nasty mess. But that Kazakhstan supply has also sort of put a lid on uranium. And here's again a geopolitical thing. If Putin decides he needs to get on with annexing the Baltic states and maybe bringing back some of these other countries into the Soviet Empire, Kazakhstan uranium supply could suddenly not be there anymore. And then you'd see uranium rocket to $100. This stuff that Trump's going to say, we're going to bring back nuclear energy, he may, but it would be 10 years before any new power plant comes online in the United States. So that has zero consequence other than a good soundbite and get people to talk about uranium. But a supply disruption from Kazakhstan, that could get a bull market going again.
So they recently said they'll cut production a little bit. Is that not enough, or how do you see that playing into it?
I mean, they're gonna. It's not clear whether they're cutting production because they have no choice or because they're voluntarily doing it.
Right.
If they have no choice because it's starting to deplete, that's good because then they'll probably cut more and more, and that'll take some of the pressure off. I'm not very much into the uranium optionality plays. I think uranium exploration is very interesting. You go to the Athabasca Basin, you look for high-grade deposits that are not going to come on stream any earlier than 10 years from now. But the Athabasca Basin in Saskatchewan has these high-grade deposits there. And one that I've been covering the last few years, which is also an innovation, exploration innovation, is Uravan Minerals. And their main project is Stewartson, on which Cameco is about $1.5 million away from earning 50%. And they have to do something this year or give it back. Cameco likes this area. The holes have been drilled in the past weren't in the right spot. They've narrowed in where it is. They have this technique of measuring the lead isotope ratios in clay. And it's a fascinating story because although the deposits will be down 800 meters at the unconformity, microbes manage to get down there and literally eat the sulfides in the deposits and create methane exhalations, which become transporters for bits of the elements in that, and these certain lead isotopes are decay products of uranium. So they stick to the clay at surface. They also end up in the sandstone rock. And a government study, CMEC, has just done it on McArthur River and used this technique and showed that beautifully the McArthur River, which is the world's best uranium deposit, is visible using this technique. And so this company, it's very cheap, but they've been working on this. It's science-driven. The Stewardson project, if they can get Cameco to either give it back to them or do some work, could result in a major new discovery in the Athabasca Basin.
Okay, the Athabasca Basin, there's lots of companies operating there. It's great. This one sounds like it really stands out. There's a bit of an east-west kind of divide there. Can you talk about that at all?
Most of the deposits have been found in the eastern flank of the basin, and the basin it's actually a giant contortion which resulted in a hole being created in the earth, and it gradually filled with all this erosional sediment. So you've got this big sandstone that gets as deep as 5,000, 10,000 feet in the middle. So it kind of slopes in the middle, and these deposits tend to form at the interface between the basement rocks and the sandstones where there are structures. And so the structures run north-south, and they're on the eastern side, and so they've been able to wander ever deeper into the basin as geophysical techniques improve and can see deeper targets. The problem with the north and south is you follow these structures and then they quickly get too deep. But the new thing that's gotten a lot of excitement is in the western part, First Fission found the Triple R deposit, and this is a basement-hosted system. The sandstones have long ago been eroded away. Then NextGen found an even better system along this whole structure of high-grade mineralization. It's going to be underground mineable, but this has sort of revived interest in these different corridors, and start chasing them and exploring deeper. And this is where, with Uravan Minerals, with its method, they can use a surface technique to detect indirectly the presence of a deposit. So as you get deeper into the basin and the geophysics starts becoming fuzzy, you need a geochemical support. And the problem with the targets there is the uranium deposits form where there are graphite beds. And graphite is what you actually sort of see as a conductor, as an EM conductor. And in fact, the uranium replaces the graphite. It's actually a hole in the conductor, which is the uranium deposit. But you got to use these conductors. And so if you do not have geochemical support, you'll blow your brains out drilling all these great-looking targets that turn out to be just graphite. Because the graphite is everywhere, but the uranium only forms in these certain places where all the conditions come together in the right way.